All right, so today we're going to dive in a little bit on a new NFT drop, but also get into kind of the new happenings for OnChain Studios and really explore some of the things they're doing strategically, but also look at the market of NFTs in general, how interoperability will work. A lot of things I think you guys love here on Metaverse Insider. So welcome back in. My name is Paul Barron. So let's get into it today. And I want to talk with a gentleman that has been on the show before, Will Weinraub, who is the co-founder and CEO of OnChain Studios. Welcome back in. Great to have you, Will.
Thank you, Paul. Appreciate you having me.
Yeah, so let's get into a little bit what you guys have been up to. Some people, if you have not watched the previous interview with Will, jump back, look at what we talked about, obviously dove in deep on Cryptoys. And I really want to find out what you guys have been up to. It's been about 6-8 months now since we've talked last. So kind of give me an update.
Yeah, so much. I mean, we're building a lot of different initiatives on the Cryptoys platform. I think when we were connecting, we were just getting ready for our first kind of like beta drop and beta launch with some of our early adopters and testing that out. And, we did our partnership with Mattel. We launched Masters of the Universe, which went extremely well. We also launched our own original IP, these characters that you see here on the screen. That's called Zoofoscape. Here we got Comet the cat kind of running through time travel here. So we launched that. That's been extremely successful. And we've been heads down building better improvements to the platform for interactivity. So you got these digital toys. How do you interact with them? How do you play with them? That's really what we've been focused on from a build perspective over the past 6 months. Some of those things you'll start to see hitting the market very soon. We've also been heads down. I think you guys see the recent news. We announced a partnership with Disney around the Star Wars IP and that franchise, which we're really, really excited about. So lots of good stuff, both on the IP front, the licensing front, new collections for people to enjoy, but also a lot of interactivity coming that you'll see hit the market here in the next few months. That's been, something we've been heads down building for the last 6 months or so.
Yeah, very cool. Man, you guys have been busy, very, very much so. We're going to do actually, we're going to set up a giveaway here. And we've got 3 winners now, 1 holocron each. So you guys basically have to do a couple of clicks here. And that's it. You'll be able to sign up and get this done. All you have to do is hit that QR code right there, and you'll get a chance at one of these new holocrons there. So it's going to be pretty cool. I love these too, by the way. Great work here. Excellent
The holocron. Thank you. The holocron unboxing experience. You can see the holocron there floating in the top of the screen.
Yep.
It's easily the best work we've done to date from an unboxing experience. If you're a Star Wars fan, this is a feast for the senses for sure. So we can't wait for folks to see it.
Yeah, I like it. Well, I think with NFTs in general, this is going to be one of the things that really sets, IP apart. And much like what it is in normal, consumption of media or collectibles, NFTs in this particular case, the ones who bring it to the table and I think do these really cool experiences are the ones I think are going to win in a big way. So congrats on what you're doing there. Let's
Thank
get
you.
into, yeah, go ahead.
Oh yeah, I was going to say that's the cool thing about this digital format. If we're trying to, build mainstream adoption and get people interested in the space, it has to kind of go beyond just like the idea of like, okay, this is an NFT, this is something, that I'm buying, selling, and trading. This has to be an experience and something that's really different and unique. So with Cryptoys, we're a digital toy company, and that's our goal is to be the world's premier digital toy company. So you have to figure out, okay, if you're a digital toy and you don't have any limitations such as plastic manufacturing, physics, all these different things, what can you do through the digital format that elevates the fan experience and gives fans and toy collectors something that they never experienced before that's only possible through a digital lens? So I think you'll see that in full force on the Star Wars drop.
And we've seen a lot happen with Artifact and Nike, kind of recreating how the Phygital experience is going to happen. I think there's going to be a lot of brands also that really kind of adopt into this area. Obviously, speaking of brands, let's talk about Disney. How long, of course, has this deal been in the works right now on the Star Wars deal?
I can't get into specifics about exactly when we started working with them, but we've been chatting with them for some time, just making sure that we do this the right way. Obviously, when it comes to a franchise as iconic as Star Wars, something that's incredibly near and dear to my heart, and something that's important to fans of all ages and fans all over the world, you want to make sure you do it the right way, especially in such a new emerging space like Web3 and NFTs. So we've been chatting with them for some time, and just making sure that we both can do something really special and unique and differentiated here.
Yeah. Well, good. When you look at Disney's overall efforts, especially when you think metaverse, we'll talk about that for a
Yeah.
second. You know, they have been on record where they've started to kind of set back. Iger's back in the game here. He's very experienced in this, obviously with his history. And with that, do you think that does this change anything for maybe Disney's strategy going? I know you can't share anything, but I'm just your opinion on how Disney may approach NFTs and metaverse in the future.
I think Disney's got a great vantage point and a great viewpoint on just digital experiences and how that could elevate the fan experience, right? When you have such an incredible war chest of IP that Disney has, you really want to look into new ways that you can excite and involve fans, and that's different formats, right? So like you look at, physical toys, you look at, in this case, digital toys, you look at
Yeah.
games. They do a fantastic job across the board. Star Wars, there was just a huge AAA game release the other day that's getting a lot of fanfare that serves a specific subset of the Star Wars, consumer base. This will serve another subset of the Star Wars consumer base. So I think, as we chat with Disney and work with them, what's very clear is they want to innovate and create amazing fan experiences, whether that be quote unquote metaverse or not. They want to make sure they're at the forefront
Yeah.
of really taking advantage of all these new technologies to create the best fan experiences possible.
Well, if that is the case, then Disney's going to be going in this direction because NFTs, I think, in general, and digital collectibles as a whole, and these physical
Yeah.
and digital experiences, this is by far, in my opinion, this is the best IP work that I've started to see in 25 years of watching IP being developed. You know, if
Mhm.
you look back at the toy industry, you look back
Yeah.
at even how games have been able to kind of evolve from Fortnite to Roblox, et cetera. This is a
Yeah.
great. It's a great time to be living. I think for people that are creators, for sure.
I think it's super exciting. I agree, Paul. Like this is an amazing, amazing time, both on the creator side and the consumer side. You're able to really build things that are really special and unique that weren't possible before, thanks to these new technologies and the advancements of these new technologies. And then on the consumer side, I mean, just look at the things that we're looking at here on the screen, which is Masters of the Universe Cryptoy unboxing. Like this is only possible recently to do this kind of stuff, and elevate the collector experience. We chat with folks all over the world that are getting into digital collecting for the first time through Cryptoys, and it's just really cool for people to start making that jump and then understanding. Oh, there's this whole Web3 layer. Oh, there's this whole blockchain layer. But
Right.
it's interesting how that's secondary. It's always secondary. It's fun and fandom first, and then discovery of the technology is secondary. So we have to, always be respectful of it. But I agree, this is a very exciting time for established franchises to do new things, but also new IP and franchises to really innovate.
Yeah. I mean, I've had a chance to kind of live through a few cycles of tech innovation, and one thing that always happens in the early eras is the issue of the tech itself kind of becomes a thing, and when reality it becomes somewhat fades to black as more adoption starts to take place because people don't care about that. They just care about really
Correct.
the core of what's happening, which I think we'll
Yeah,
see more and
you
more.
and I remember the days when the MP3s started coming out, right? The MP3
Mhm.
file
It was all
format,
about the
right? And
tech
MP3
versus the
was
music.
exactly right. We came out, oh, this is an MP3 player. Oh, how do I
Yeah.
download MP3s?
Mhm.
How do I use MP3s? And nowadays, people just listen to music. They don't care if it's an MP3 file or WAV file, it doesn't matter. And I think you're going to start to see the same thing with NFTs. People are going to, use that word or that acronym NFT much like MP3, or about what the tech is, but it's really more so about the top level consumer experience, and the tech is something you just discover later on.
Let's talk about this because I look at the self custody and anti interoperability scales that are happening right now within
Mhm.
all sorts of communities out there. When you look at like with what is going on with Disney for you guys, is Disney kind of leaning toward possibly interoperability and self custody? What is kind of the strategy when you look at big IP like that going forward? Because this could be really a big game changer.
Yeah, I can't speak particular to their vantage points on those topics. I do know when working with great licensing partners like Disney and Mattel, there's a common thread that they are open minded and interested in all these different avenues, right, to reach consumers, meet them where they are, and innovate. So while I can't speak exactly into what their viewpoints are, the underlying or the overarching viewpoint, I should say, is that they're very open and they're leaning forward into innovation and doing cool things. And I think it's up to consumer behavior to really dictate how to best cater to those demographics. So we certainly have viewpoints, of where we want to push our platform. The first thing that we want to do is make sure that these are easy to use and easy to access for consumers, not just folks that are familiar with Web3, blockchain, and self custody, but for folks that are discovering Web3 and NFTs for the first time. This has to be super simple and super easy for folks to use. And then all the stuff for advanced users can come later on down the line. But the one commonality I see with all of our partners is they want to meet consumers where they are and they want to innovate for sure.
Listen, I think more brands are starting to get to that reality, is that one, the demographic has changed versus what they were maybe marketing to 10 years ago. And when you
Yeah.
look at Alpha and Gen Z, both, it's a different game now. There's a lot more into this whole digital collectible component that they're starting to realize. Blockchain, of course, kind of led the way there. I want to jump back to a point you just hit on here, and that is kind of this conversion between Web 2, 2.5, and where we're going with kind of this next connection of advanced web. Um, and there's a video clip here I want to play for you. It's Yatsu. He's from Animoca Brands. We've had him on the show a couple of
Yeah.
times. He talks about this a lot. Let me flip to that clip and see what you think about this.
Just to clarify, I don't have an objection to Web 2.5. It's just a lot of people who have come to us to talk about Web 2.5, is that they want to make money like Web 3, because the capital formation and value is just so incredible. But they want to control like Web 2.
Okay.
And that's where I have an issue. So the typical question is, are you Web 2.7 or are you Web 2.3? Like, which part of the equation are you sitting on, right? The fact that we need an onboarding experience that actually helps people migrate is necessary. But what I don't agree with is that we make them entirely blind to the process. Otherwise, you end up basically just being a Web 2 user that happens to own Web 3 assets, right? And you suddenly go back to being, a Web 3 version of Web 2, where they can use your assets and they can maybe utilize them in manners that you don't approve. I mean, that's what happened with FTX. And unfortunately, in Web 2, we have trained billions of people that convenience of access is the primary benefit, which I very much disagree with. The number of times that you start a new game, you go through tutorial, that's like 10 minutes, 15 minutes, sometimes it's hours. And at the end, you're not just entertained, you learned a new skill. And to me, I think that should be, as part of that should be financial onboarding, financial education, knowing what value is, because then I think the world will change. Because, if now billions of people have similar knowledge about financial systems, that to me becomes the antidote for financial abuse.
Interesting. So with your point, you get into the idea of onboarding. That does lean more toward Web 2.0, the typical strategies, because you're trying to get to access to the real market that lives there now, versus this evolution of where this tech is going. I mean, do you see this ever becoming well, I'm sure it's going to be a problem, of no self-custody becoming a thing? Because we're already seeing this challenging other platforms out there. I won't name them, but there's a lot of community pushback around this right now. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of truth to what Yat's saying, and I respect his perspective a lot. I think very highly of Yat, and he's such an innovator. Full disclosure, Yat and Animoca Brands are investors in OnChain Studios and Cryptoys, and I've had the pleasure of working alongside Yat on a few different initiatives. Really incredible team over there. I agree with his point that you can't blind the user to advancing in the space, or what is the underlying tech. You don't want to hide that. It's important that that's at the forefront so they understand what they're getting into. I think there's a differentiation. There's a financial aspect to all this, like blockchain stuff and buying, selling, trading. Then there's consumer fandom and enjoyment and entertainment. And we have to figure out how we meet in the middle. For me, it always starts with consumer fandom, fun, and entertainment, because if you don't nail that, all the other aspects of buying, selling, and trading become a moot point. So I agree that there needs to be stepping stones. You need to be able to have easy onboarding experiences. That has to be table stakes to onboarding the next million, 5 million, 10 million, 25, 50 million people. Have to have easy onboarding. But then it's important, like what Yat said, you don't want to blind people. You don't want to, hide any of this stuff from them. You want to show them what is the next step after this. Why is this technology so amazing? Why could it revolutionize things? I mean, we don't hide whatsoever from the fact that we're a blockchain-based company. The platform's name is Cryptoys, for crying out loud, right? It's literally in the name of the product. And our parent company is called OnChain Studios. I mean, we're blockchain and crypto focused, right? But just in a consumer-friendly way. So if you look at OnChain Studios and you look at our website, our mission statement is to entertain, empower, and educate the next generation of collectors. So entertain, we get how that is, right? You want to create great experiences that highlight fandom and are a lot of fun. But what about the educate and the empower components? That's really kind of highlights what Yad is talking about, right? Educating consumers on what this is, what they're getting into, why is this so amazing? What is this new frontier? And how does this unlock new opportunities, right? Empower is part of that too. You're empowering them with information on ways that they can, really move forward in a lot of different ways and initiatives in their lives. So, I agree with a lot of what Yat said there. Absolutely. And it's a challenge because we hear this saying in the space, we're still early. We're still early. Yes, you are still early without a doubt. If you look at like the Web3 total addressable market of people that own blockchain-based wallets and are active, it is incredibly small compared to all these bigger markets, these multi-billion-dollar consumer-based markets, right? So yes, you are early. So for blockchain folks that are in the industry, you have to thread the needle in very careful, meticulous, meaningful ways to say, okay, here's this new amazing technology, but here's how we get you involved slowly, comfortably, and then educate you on how to take the next steps if you choose to do so and if you want to be that type of user. So agree with a lot of what Yat said right there.
Well, and I think the key here is, as companies, and especially IP property, companies like you, is there's a lot of challenges that I think are going to be facing us in the near future, much like in the early days of tech innovation in mobile or social or any of these big waves that took place for society. And the ones who, because you're going to have the winners and losers there, and the ones who I think look at interoperability, self-custody, because of the nature of how crypto and in general the blockchain is perceived, I think this is going to be very critical. Otherwise, you've got almost a 360 that you have to do of how that tech is going to be done in the future around new adoption. So this is a very interesting time for sure. I want to jump over talking about blockchain. Let's jump over to Flow, and I've got a few videos from Flow on self-custody, interoperability, and a little bit about their IPFS as well. Let me flip over a couple of videos here. Let's take a look.
Get there, but we are actually going to take it a step further. When these users are ready in the journey of progressive onboarding, they'll be able to seamlessly upgrade to self-custody and take custody of those assets without creating a walled garden of those assets within those tabs.
All right, so in that kind of scenario, will you be taking advantage of something like this?
That's exactly right. That's the overall plan and goal. Is you want to start with self-custody. You want to start with being custodial to make it easy for people to get onboarded if they don't even have any interest in self-custody or the risk that comes with self-custody. But then, yes, if somebody wants to have self-custody of their assets, we believe that they should have a right to do so. So if you look at how it works with cryptocurrencies, how do most folks buy their first cryptocurrency? They created a Coinbase account using their email. They created a password. They bought their first Bitcoin on Coinbase or Ethereum or whatever cryptocurrency they bought. And then as they got educated, they started to hear certain things about self-custody and what does that mean and why is that important? They start to learn about opening, a third-party wallet, a MetaMask wallet, holding your keys in a safe and secure place, understanding the risks that, hey, if you lose the seed phrase, then anybody could have access to your assets. So you have to kind of, repeat that model for really getting mainstream adoption. So I agree 100% with the approach that Flo is just outlining there. You got to start simple. Like in Cryptoys, we want a grandmother to be able to buy a Cryptoy for her grandson for Christmas. And let's face it, very few people are going to have to deal with setting up a MetaMask wallet, learning what that even means, installing that extension on Chrome, figuring out what a seed phrase even is, writing that seed phrase down, going to a cryptocurrency exchange to buy Ethereum, waiting for KYC, wiring over the Ethereum, like nobody's going through that process to buy something for their grandson. So we have to find that middle ground, and we have to find what it's like to really give consumers great experience.
Yeah, I would argue though that as that grandson starts to move into this direction, I mean, I have 6 and 7 year olds that are already asking the question, "Are those mine?" When they're in these games, they're asking that question.
That's right.
So their framework is already being wired out to where we're going to see a lot more of this. So I think eventually that is just going to seep into a natural evolution of where.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's a beautiful thing. We agree with that. We want to see people, have that mentality and then take that next step. That's part of the education component that we're so passionate about. If I buy anything in the physical world, that's my own quote unquote physical self custody. And I can decide what I do with that asset and where I can hold that asset or trade that asset, et cetera, in the physical world. And let's face it, the next generation is growing up in a digital, in a more digital world. We know it's unavoidable that the world is going to continue to be more and more digital. I think, we're all interested to see what Apple releases here in the coming months around the Apple headset and how that's going to help integrate, digital and physical and create really cool experiences for us in our work lives and our personal lives. So if the world's going more and more digital, these technologies and these forms of education are critical. They're really, really important for the next generation to understand. And we want to lean into that here at OnChain Studios for sure.
That's good. Let's go to another clip here on the Flow team going on interoperability. Take a look.
Pushing interoperability even further, we've released what we call Storefront version 2. It's an on-chain marketplace for NFT listings that can be consumed by any NFT marketplace. Now, any NFT listed in one marketplace can now be available on all marketplaces that support Flow. That's a huge value add because your listings are now discoverable in the whole Flow universe.
So, I mean, you look at that, I mean, that's going to essentially not really require marketplaces out there with interoperability. I mean, do you see that as eventually, would Cryptoys even need a marketplace with this kind of feature set that's being built in?
I love that feature set, and what they're highlighting is the sense that like distribution is key for this to continue to get widespread adoption. If you look at any consumer product, right? If you're a retail consumer product, you need to have, your product sold at Walmart. You need to have your product sold at Targets. You need to have your product sold on Amazon. You need to have your product sold on Best Buy if you're an electronic product. You need distribution. You need to meet the customers where they are. And the more technology advances in the Web3 space that allows us to write something as a smart contract and then allow distribution to permeate throughout the web, I think that's one of the key components of composability that a lot of people get really, really excited about is you kind of write once and all of a sudden it's available on all these different platforms and you can consume it as you want. So, it kind of reemphasizes why Flow is really thinking about this the right way. And, Flow was built, from the ground up as a blockchain, a layer 1 blockchain for consumer experiences, for interactive consumers, fun on the blockchain. I think Dapper Labs tagline at one point was about, fun on the blockchain on a previous website. So I really respect their whole approach and methodology when it comes to, what they're doing.
Yeah, if you think about just the technology that is RSS, for a podcast, most people don't realize how that works, but it's one point of complacent, and now you have multi-distribution capability pretty much at will. That I think is one of the killer apps with Flow. Let's go into this last clip right here when you look at storage, because this is going to get interesting, I think, with digital assets, NFTs, etc. Let's take a look at this last clip here on Flow.
And then they are fully animated, so they can move. They're not static, and they can have smooth transitions. And especially they are fully on chain, so they are stored on the Flow blockchain. They're not stored somewhere else on IPFS servers that if someone stops paying for them, they will disappear. They will live on the Flow blockchain forever.
So is that kind of your strategy going forward? Is that's where the Flow blockchain was where these assets would live?
Absolutely. I mean, you know, when you create the smart contract, you're embedding a lot of the assets and the imagery onto, you know, that smart contract so that they are composable. You know, one of the benefits of blockchain, I think, just as an underlying technology, is the blockchain lives beyond the centralized company, and it gives you assurance that no matter what happens to the centralized company, the asset can live on. And you know, as long as there's marketplaces that will support that blockchain, you'll be able to sell it even if the company is no longer operational. I've used this analogy in the past before. A lot of folks don't realize this, but the first baseball cards that were ever created were created by tobacco companies, and you know, they would come with cigarettes. That's how you would get your Babe Ruth cards and things like that. So cigarette companies made the first baseball cards. Of course, those companies would go out of business, but those baseball cards are still worth something, even though that centralized tobacco company that was making the trading card is no longer around. So for digital collectibles to be a thing, we need to provide users and consumers with assurances that no matter what happens to the centralized companies, that these collectibles will still be around and have that provenance, you know, for eternity on the blockchain, because it's fully decentralized. So, you know, fully in line with that approach.
Yeah, it's a true collectible. Before we go into the roadmap, I just want to remind everybody we've got a giveaway going on, so make sure and check this QR code out right here for one of these holocrons. Again, this will be interesting to see. Good luck to you guys on getting one of these. This is going to be fun, and I'd love to get your feedback. If you end up getting one of these types of NFTs, let us know. Just drop some comments down below. All right, well, let's go over to the roadmap and talk a little bit about. You know, you've got Playsets, Backpacks kind of coming in, is already in the Masters of the Universe side. What does that look like for Star Wars now?
Yeah, so I've made this comparison before. You often kind of see what we're building with Cryptoys as kind of like the intersection of toys, gaming, interactivity, because you have these digital toys. How do you play with them in different ways, and how do you interact with them in different ways? We'll be doing something unique and special for all of our lines of toys. You know, there'll be some experiences that will be, you know, limited and exclusive for certain lines. Some lines will support certain experiences, some won't. You could do fun and creative stuff for some and really highlight the fandom and the IP in others. So we can't make any announcements specifically on upcoming stuff that we have with Disney and Star Wars, but we have some cool stuff in the works, that's for sure. That we'll have announcements at a later date. But if we zoom out at the overall roadmap and the overall kind of platform that we're building, we really are thinking about interactivity, about how you would want to interact with these toys. What's a toyetic experience that really can unlock next levels of fun and play because it's a digital toy? And what can you do? Like if you once you see the Star Wars unboxing experience, you realize that if this was in the real world, you would never be able to unbox a toy like that. That is something that's purely reserved for digital, right? All the special effects and whatnot, right? But you know, when it comes to play and interactivity, what can we do in a digital format through the lens of a toy, right? We've always, talked about, like when we were kids, you remember we'd get our He-Mans or Barbies or G.I. Joes and we'd take them out of the box and we'd pretend like they were talking to each other, right? We'd reenact scenes. Well, you might be able to do that on the Cryptoys platform in the near future and do cool stuff there. But then also thinking about how do you take these on the go. Right now, we are predominantly a desktop and web-based platform, even though you could access it on mobile via mobile web. We do have a native app coming for iOS and Android. We have AR experiences coming out for the mobile app. Our first game is almost finished with development. It's currently in beta and test flight for some of our early users. So our first mobile game on iOS and Android. So we're really proud and excited about that. Full customization features, so you can customize your Cryptoys in different ways throughout the app. And then, like you hit on playsets. Playsets are something that are definitely coming. Here in the next few months. We're aiming to get that out. We don't have an exact release date for it, but that is for sure coming. And the idea is, like, you think of a playset like Masters of the Universe. If you were to buy Castle Grayskull, that physical playset, you would have Castle Grayskull itself, which would be the building or the structure. Then you would also come bundled with toys. You would have like maybe 2 or 3 characters. You get He-Man and Skeletor, then a bunch of accessories. So think of the playset as like a big bundle in the Cryptoys platform that also includes a building, like you see Castle Grayskull here, a structure, or even a vehicle. There could be a lot of different things that play sets, so if you could start thinking about the IPs that we work with, what would make sense, you're probably on the right track of the cool things that we want to do on that front and that we have in the works. So, and the thing about playsets that's worth highlighting is we see playsets as like launchers for experiences. So if you were to walk into Castle Grayskull or click on Castle Grayskull, for example, that would launch an experience. That could be a game, that could be an AR experience, that could be a point and click style experience. It could be something more immersive. So you'll have to wait and see what those are as we release the playsets, but we see them as game launchers. So if you think of Cryptoys is an NFT native Nintendo in a sense, your play sets are like cartridges, game cartridges that you could do different things with. So we're excited.
Yeah. I mean, it sounds like you guys are really rolling out in a big way with this. So it's good to see that kind of creativity. This must be one of those fun jobs to have. I want to get into your thoughts on this right here, is kind of just what Ubisoft is doing around the phygital aspect of smart collectibles, the much more integrated, where you can do some things with them that are kind of unique through interactions, etc. How do you see that going forward? I mean, as far you being a digital asset designer and working obviously as the company lead, but what are your thoughts on that? As a market, as we start to see kind of this evolution happen.
I'm super bullish on this connection, the physical and digital connection. It's proven that customers want this. Now, the execution of it, we're all figuring out how to best do it in the most sustainable way. We've seen Toys to Life as a category come and go over the years. There's been many instances of Toys to Life where companies had to mass produce millions and millions of toys with a digital redemption that financially wasn't sustainable. And many lines have shut down over the years. But what we found is that there's some interesting learnings from those previous attempts that are really native to Web3, and doing the reverse, where you can say, hey, instead of producing millions and millions and millions of units on a physical standpoint and having a digital redemption, what about the reverse model, where you actually mint the digital first and you get a physical redemption, and you can really have a control over supply and how much you need to produce and to make sure this is financially viable. So that's really interesting. We're super bullish on that. We have a lot in the works on that front that we're excited to announce shortly. So I think doing this the right way is going to be huge. It also helps Web3 adoption. I'm a massive fan of what Luca Nets and Pudgy Penguins just announced just yesterday with their Pudgy toys. I'm massive fan of what they've built. I think they're handling it the right way. So I'm really excited. This physical and digital frontier, it's only the lines are going to continue to be more blurred. And I am starting to believe and I have a vantage point to my kids who their methods of play are so different than when you and I were growing up as a kid. Yeah, I mean, it's a fact. Look, kids get iPads these days at between 4 and 5 years old. Like the data is out there that they're getting tablets, whether it's iPad or Android based, they're getting their first digital device, like a high fidelity digital device and screen, between 4 and 5 years old. And their thoughts of when they think of how do I play, they don't think of a video game. They don't think of like an action figure. They think this is accessible here. This is accessible here. These are different formats of play, and they ebb and flow between the two.
Exactly.
And it's very natural to them. So to them, the lines are blurred between physical and digital already. So I think if you're thinking about the toy industry moving forward, you have to continue to blur those lines. And I think any physical that doesn't have a digital enablement, moving forward will be at a disadvantage, because as this next generation grows up and gets older, they're going to want things that provide values in different formats. Again, meeting the customer where they are at that particular moment. So I'm really excited about this new frontier for sure.
Well, and I think this also starts to set a framework and also a roadmap for a lot of different industries of this physical digital connection that, I think toys and certain types of IP are probably going to have the most impact, at least in the early state. When Yasu's been on our show before, he always brings up this idea of culture that will drive NFTs. And I agree with him. I think that is going to be one of the early elements for adoption. So definitely. You touched on mobile games. When would we see the first mobile game from Cryptoys?
We actually have one already out. It's in test flight. It's so if you're in our Discord and you snoop around a little bit and ask the right folks on how to get access, you might be able to get access. So definitely join the Discord. Okay. Check it out. There you go. There's a little preview of our first mobile game. Yep. So if you're interested in testing it out, we're looking for feedback on how to make it better and constantly improve. That's called Zoofo Escape in homage of our first line of toys. So that's already out and in beta testing, and that will be out in the public probably later this year with the release of our full mobile app and our full mobile experience. That'll be part of the game launcher there.
Very cool. My last question to you gets into kind of this theory of how mainstream adoption might occur. This was a story over on the block. Obviously, everybody knows about Apple allowing Axie to basically come into the App Store. Now, granted, this was limited release, but it starts to set up and maybe create the aha moment that maybe mobile devices and the Apple ecosystem, Google ecosystem could really start to flow in this direction. What are your thoughts?
Absolutely. I think that was a great positive indicator. Based on our conversations with folks, you could see those companies already starting to learn more about the Web3 space and what it means and why it's important to consumers. And I've only seen willingness to work with the Web3 community as opposed to there's a lot of narrative out there about Apple's never going to allow Web3 and NFT-based applications on their ecosystem. I think, I commend Apple. Or some of the things that I'm seeing is they have their ear to the ground and they're listening, and they want to find ways, again, meet consumers where they are. And if this is consumer demand, they're going to start doing things. I think the Axie Infinity announcement is a testament to that. And that bodes well for the entire industry. So again, and it goes back to what we were talking about earlier, Paul, that NFT and Web3, it's just underlying tech that'll be invisible to the customer. Exactly. And at the end of the day, they just want to have fun with games like Axie.
Well, I mean, you got to think about it. You just look at the lineage of Apple. They've already done this once. If you think of really where they birthed music was through the iPod, and that very example was the whole idea of MP3s getting into that first device. So I would agree. I think that's going to be interesting. And I'm also intrigued because of the fact that we'll see the AR components start to flow from Apple, meaning hardware, with augmented reality. And with that, I think it's going to open up maybe a whole new area for Apple. They are in the driver's seat along with a handful of other device makers out there. We're watching Meta, of course, closely. Microsoft, obviously, what's happening with Xbox, and Sony, you've got to pay attention to with where all this is going to be going. So don't forget, guys, we've got that giveaway, so we'll flash it up one more time. Make sure and hit that QR code. You'll be able to it's just like 2 clicks to get into this Holocron giveaway. So all brought to you by the Cryptoys team. Will, it's always fun having you on the show. Always love to dive into this stuff, get some good insights. You bring a lot to the table, so we appreciate you stopping in.
Such a blast, Paul. Thank you for having me. And I got to give a shout out to you and the incredible team over there. There's been many folks that jump in our Discord and they say, oh, I just came from the Paul Barron interview. That's how I discovered you guys. So huge shout out to you guys on the incredible work that you guys do. Just grateful for being on.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, guys, we'll see you later, Will. You guys, if you're not in our Diamond Circle right now, make sure and get in. It's another way you can kind of communicate with us here on Metaverse Insider. And also, if you're not catching all of our shows, we've got TechPath Crypto, Metaverse Insider here, and a lot more. We do a lot within that Diamond Circle. Kyle Wilson's got a podcast over there on our Web3 topics. I drop in occasionally. You can only catch that in that group, so click the link down below. Of course, if you want to reach me, it is out there on Twitter, @Paul Barron. We'll catch you next time right here on Metaverse Insider.